So wind's getting up a bit. It's supposed to be 50-mile-an-hour winds today. Right, the Fiat Panda is having problems with the alternator. The alternator lives underneath the air conditioning pump there. It's very difficult to get at, so she'll need to jack it up and get access in through the wheel well. It's also quite difficult to get out, I believe. I suggest you take off the engine mounts and lift the engine up on this side, and gives you enough room down the bottom to slide the alternator out. But first I shall need to disconnect the battery, because there will be live terminals on the back of the alternator that we need to take off. Yeah, the alternator's been intermittently howling. Obviously the bearings are a bit rusty inside it, and yesterday I was getting the battery warning light when I was losing electric power steering as well. But the belts are on. The new belts fitted a couple of weeks ago. Pity the garage didn't notice that the alternator was on its way out. But we'll get it jacked up and get this wheel off on this side. Get the wheel off and suitably support it. I'll get my engine crane to lift this side of the engine. That's handy. The negative terminal's got a quick release. Great. Got the wheel off. Discs look pretty horrible. Starting to chip round the edges. A bit scored on the back as well. Yeah, I think about time I got new discs on. So the pads don't look too bad in there. Still about 6 mil of material on. Anyway, in here we should be able to get in the back somehow. Take this one out, I'll be able to sneak in underneath there. See the bottom of some brackets. Right, I'll get that panel off. Right, 2 screws here to come out. One there, one here. Yep, sneaky. I've hidden one behind the brake pipe. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it in behind there. There's one behind the brake pipe. Okay, got the panel out, and I can see in there, I can see the bottom of the alternator, and I can see the tensioner pulley. You see the tensioner pulley there. Before I go trying to take the bolts out of the alternator, I shall spray them down with some penetrant. This is some Worth Ultra 2040 that a friend of mine sent me to try out. He says it's the bee's knees stuff, says it works fine. We shall see. Right, you can release the tension by tightening down on that nut on the tensioning pulley. It slackens the belt off. Now just taking the belt off the main pulley there. Just unthread it off the rest. Just remember which way it goes back on. So it goes round this main pulley, crankshaft pulley, over the tensioner, under the alternator and over the air conditioning pump. So we've got a nice new Denso alternator, 90 amp for the Pandas that have the air conditioning. So check and see where all the bolt holes are, because I can't see the top one. I need to figure out where it is, because it will be touchy-feely to try and find where it is underneath the air conditioning pump. Hopefully I can get something in there. Okay, that's the top mount there. That's the 2 bottom ones. I can see them fine. So I just need to find where that one is and see if I can sneak in a socket wrench. And you've got connections on the back. Yes, this is a premium Denso make, and they don't even give you new hardware to put your cables on. But at least expected some nuts and washers. It's very difficult down there. I managed to get a short extension in with my 1/4 inch ratchet, and I've managed to loosen the top bolt. I'm just slowly backing it out now with my fingers. That'll be fun to get out. Right, I've got the bolts out of the old alternator. I've pulled it off the dowels. You can see there's a hollow dowel there that goes into that bracket. And I've also undone the 2 terminals. One nut's a 13mm, the other one's an 8mm. I tilted it upwards and was able to get the cables off. Now the hole was not big enough to get through here. This bracket gets in the road. So the suggested method is to slacken the offside engine mount and lift the engine up until we get a big enough gap here. So we'll try that. Right, 17mm nuts. 17mm nuts, and my engine crane should lift it. Right, with a bit of twisting, managed to get it past there. Oops, that's it out. Yeah, quite tight. One dowel stuck in there. And there's other dowels in there. Well, many hours later, I have got it back in. Belts back on, engine mounts back on. It was quite difficult to do single-handed. You're lifting the alternator up from underneath and then trying to put it onto some dowels. Unfortunately, the dowel holes in the new alternator were larger, which meant that the dowels weren't gripping the alternator, so you couldn't pull it in place and leave it there all lined up. You had to hold it, and it was difficult to hold, trying to wedge it in, tighten bolts up, blind bolts around the back. There's one that bolt that hides in. There's one bolt that's right underneath the compressor for the air conditioning. It goes in through that way underneath, about there, and it's the bolt head's about there. About 4 inches, 3 inches below that. Very tricky to get in. It was also quite tricky to put the wires back on the alternator. Doing that virtually blind, had to turn it upside down or facing up the way, and put them on blind and tighten them up. There's one 8mm nut, one 13mm nut. Got them on the right place. Belt went back on, no problem. Got the cover back in there, plastic panel. I don't think I took anything else off apart from the wheel. And that'll be it. And then reconnect the battery, of course. Yeah, so you reset the clock again. I've had the battery off. Handbrake light, and not got my seatbelt on. There we go. Time and date set. I think that's the date anyway. 6th of April. Yeah, I started this before lunch, so yeah, I've been at it a wee while. Okay, I did spend a couple of hours having my lunch. Took a while though. It'd been a lot easier if I had a second pair of hands.